Hi, everybody. So today I have the pleasure of talking with Jay Crownover are you in Denver or around
I'm
Denver?
south of Denver. I'm in Colorado Springs.
There
Yeah.
you go. So
Yeah.
straight from Colorado Springs.
Huh.
So thank you so much for agreeing to do this conversation. I really appreciate it. Your readers are very intense and sent a lot of questions. So unfortunately, I didn't expect as many questions as I got. So sorry, readers, I might not have a chance to ask all of the questions, but I will try to get through as many as I can. Um, and who knows, maybe we'll do a round two eventually with the rest of the questions. Um,
I could
so,
talk for hours.
I mean, so can I. So this is going to be dangerous. But let's start with the first things first. How did you get into writing? How did it all start for you, and how did you decide to write romance books?
I was always a big reader. My mom is a teacher and then she was a librarian. So when I was little, like I was not, I got books as gifts, not Barbies. So like I was always a pretty big reader. Like when I was a young adult, like, blew through all of the Sweet Valley High romances and the Babysitters Club romances. And I loved, I mean, Nancy Drew is my favorite, like still to this day. Like if I was a smarter writer, I would not write romance. I would write mystery, but I'm not good enough at coming up with those cool twists and plots to like write mystery full time. Uh, yeah, so I'm always a big reader, um, forever, and I preferred romance. Like when I was old enough to like start sneaking my mom's Nora Roberts books, like I always that was what I preferred to read. Um, and when I started writing in 2012, I was going through a divorce, and it was pretty contentious, but more than being contentious, it was financially devastating. There's like a lot of stuff in finances that I didn't realize was going on behind my back. So I ended up very, very broke and very, very poor. So I couldn't afford anything. Like I couldn't afford cable. I couldn't afford to go to the movies. I couldn't afford anything. So all I was doing was like working and being sad. So I was like, like while I'm closing the bar, I was a bar manager at the time. I was like, I'm gonna maybe write a book. Like I can write. Like since I can't read, like I've read 9,000 romances. Like why can't I write one? Plus, it was a great distraction. And I was really sad and I was frustrated and I was very poor. So like I spent like the time until my divorce was finalized, which was like, I don't know, 5 months writing Rule. And then as soon as I signed my divorce papers, I was like done with the book. I was like, oh, I was like, I have a book done. What do I do with it? So I like, poked around on the internet and I was like, well, I don't want to submit it to an agent because it's not like, it was just therapy for me. It wasn't like I was trying to be an author. But at that time, Amazon had launched their own self-publishing program. Like I think it was only that year. It might have started in 2009 or 2011, but I mean, it was really close to like when they had just started it out. So I was like, oh, nobody has to. No, and all I have to do is upload it, and people can read it. I was like, sweet, I'm gonna do that. And like between the time I uploaded it and the next day, I don't know if it was the cover, I don't know if it was the description. Sold 10,000 copies over a 24-hour period. It was wild. Like it would just blew up. I think mostly because at that time, New Adult was taking, like Colleen and Cora Carmack and Jennifer Armentrout and, like everybody was writing college age and that's what it was set in, but nobody was really writing like the kids like me that were in college. So like, Rule is very Gen X coded, like the warp tour, social distortion, and all that stuff. So I don't know if it just found the right audience because New Adult and because it was different at the time. Like just yeah. So anyway, it blew up and then a publisher approached me and was like, hey, we could make this a series. And I was like, sure, I guess if I wrote one book, I could write more. And the S less, I mean, yeah, it was a product of very good timing and like I think the universe paying me back for going through a really shitty time.
I mean, I guess we can call it a silver lining because it is amazing that it blew up that way
Yeah, it was
so quick.
crazy.
Um, So, talking about other romance authors, Kelsey is asking if you are friends with other authors and if you hang out with other famous writers in the romance genre.
Yeah, Cora Carmack's my best friend in the whole world. I see her all the time. Like, I either go to Texas and hang out with her, or she comes to Colorado. Rebecca Yarros and I are friends. We used to be neighbors. So, like, I
No
don't see her
way.
much anymore because she's like, the biggest thing on the planet. But yeah, we're friendly. Karina Holly and I are really good friends. Allison Rhymes, who's a newer writer, started writing last year. I've known her for a million years because she started in the book industry as a blogger, but she's one of my closest friends. I know most in like passing, like there's nobody that like, most of us that have doing this for a long time, like everybody knows each other. It's a small little world. Like yeah, that handful of people are the ones that like, if I needed a kidney, I would call Cora first. But if I needed somebody to come let my dogs out, I'd call Rebecca. So like, you know, uh yeah, I'm trying to think. Kathleen Tucker and I are friends. I really like her. She's hilarious. Um, yeah. But I mean, friendly with pretty much everyone. Tijan and I are friends. I don't see her very often. We chat digitally. Penelope Douglas and I are like friendly. Actually, I get along really well with her husband. We were at an event and I had my parents and she was there. So her husband Larry hung out with my dad the whole weekend.
Oh, that's
So
adorable.
like I actually like I chat with Larry occasionally. But yeah.
That's so cool. And just a little personal note, I'm obsessed with Cora Carmack's book, especially Roar is so good. And yeah, so I'm kind of jealous of your friendship. And
Yeah, she's amazing. She had a really got hit really hard with some personal health issues, like really bad, but she has been steadily getting better through like better diagnoses and better medicine and like better like just habits. She's doing much better. So the third book in that series should be done at some point. Like for a while, she just like had given up and like didn't think it was going to get done. But yeah, I mean, she's a trooper. She's actually really amazing. Like everything she's overcome and as far as she's coming, like she is still like if she wasn't inhibited by her health issues, like one of the most creative and like detailed and talented writers. Like we always joke that we could write a book together, but then we talk about it. I'm like, I honestly don't think I could keep up with her. Like her thought process is like Mount Everest, and I'm like the foothills. Like she just her conceptual and her process is much different than I like. I just write. Like I get an idea, I just write. I don't like plot and I don't like plan. I don't do anything. I just like vomit words. And she's like, no, she's like, we need to know how all these characters are connected and like, hey, are you happy now? But yeah,
hi. So
ditto.
so since it's just audio, I am now seeing the cutest dog on the planet.
Look, you're on the screen. She wants
Oh,
outside, but she can just wait.
so cute. So yeah, totally jealous of your friendship. Wish I could be part of that duo slash trio because yeah, I volunteer as tribute if you guys need a third friend. So Selena is asking, what unique traits or quirks do you believe create the most compelling chemistry between your characters?
I think the most important thing is conflict. Like you have to have like to like draw them together. There has to be some kind of internal conflict like between the two of them, be it like a difference in like social status, a difference in financial status, a difference in like moral status, like a difference in like they just have to have something like compelling that causes friction between them for them to be an engaging couple on the page. Like if they are just copy paste copies of one another, it's the most like it's so boring. You know what I mean? Like if you have two really, 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 really nice humans and they're just nice to each other for 100,000 words, like you know. And then I think you have to have outside conflict. I think outside conflict to drive either the inner conflict or just for them to join together to battle against the external conflict. Like I think that that is the hallmark of like what makes a good romance is you have to have some kind of battle, either coming from inside or outside.
I like it. Betty is asking, how do you ensure that the setting in your stories feels like a living entity influencing the romance as much as the characters do?
I try and write places that I am familiar and with so that I can write those places as a character in the book. Like the Marked Men series is very much a love letter to Denver, to Colorado, because that's where I went to college. So like that is the whole feeling of the Marked Men series is like what a college age kid feels like in Denver. So you have all four seasons and you have like what it's like to be, out in the bar scene in Denver. And then like if I don't know a place well enough to write it, I just make it up, like the point. So like the point is, it's supposed to be anywhere you go that is a dicey, scary part of town for a female to be walking in alone, which every city has, every country has. Like, there's always that one place, like if you're traveling, people are like, you might want to avoid so and so, like you might don't want to turn so and so. So the point is like just my version of that part of the city in every city, but instead of giving it a name, I just called it the point because like Denver's bad part of town for years was called Five Points. It's getting gentrified now, so I don't think it's as bad as it was, but I just took the point from 5 points and now it's like, that can be anywhere. It can be a rough part in Oakland, it can be a rough part in Detroit, it can be a bad part of New York City, like whatever. So yeah, if I can't write about it to the point that like that's why none of my books are set like overseas, because as much as I love Paris and as much as I love London, like I don't know the city well enough to bring it alive on the page, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And again, personal note, you're doing a great job at it because I went to Denver and I basically just visited the places where the characters hang out in Rule.
Oh, good.
And so I went to like, I mean, it was closed for some renovations, but like I went to the clock tower thingy where they get
Oh yeah.
married and stuff. So like I went because you described them so well that I was like, oh yeah, this is yeah, okay, I can remember that in the book and stuff. So you're doing a great job. Um, then we have Stacy asking, what's the most unconventional or unexpected romance you've ever written, and what inspired it?
uh, a couple of years back I wrote a book called The Best Bad Things, which is set in the point, but it's like it's got a bit of a time travel element to it, like a little bit of a time slip element to it, which I've never written fantasy or paranormal or like supernatural anything. Like I just usually write contemporary romance. But I was reading a lot of translated Asian novels and like in their romance, that's like a pretty common thing where like a character is transmigrated into like another life or they die and they're reborn into the character to redo all the horrible things that they had done with their life. So like getting a chance to fix everything that you felt was wrong with your life before. And I just think that's such a fascinating idea. Like it's like if you could go back, like if I could go back, would I ever have gotten married? Would I have ever done this? Would I have ever written Rule? Like the idea of getting a second chance to like change things. So I was like, well, I want to write this, but it's not a very Americanized Western type of storytelling. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And it is a very it's an acquired taste. Like my regular readers were kind of like, oh yeah, this is something. But I don't regret writing it and I don't regret publishing it because it's one of my personal favorites. And I think because it's not just a cut and dry romance, it's way more plot heavy and like has a bit of mysticism to it. Like it is one of the more interesting books I've ever written.
And did you have fun writing it too?
Oh yeah, no, I loved it. Yeah.
Cool. Um, Rebecca asks, how do you balance lighthearted moments with deeper emotional themes in your romances without getting depressed yourself? bold of you to assume the authors don't get depressed, but
I think it's just that's me. Like that's my whole personality. As like I'm pretty, happy go lucky. Like I'm pretty, you know, I don't I go with the flow for the most part, but I'm super hyper fixated on things. Like I think I have ADHD with like a really, really strong hyper fixation line. So like, when I do get caught up on something like, it is emotional, it is sad, but it's like that's also life. And like I feel like I try and write characters that anybody can relate to. Like I always want people to be able to see themselves in the people I'm writing. So I mean, that's life. Like you do have moments of pure delight and fun and romance and love, but you also have nobody comes without some kind of baggage, and nobody is going to live their life without facing some kind of turmoil. That's just, you know, impossible.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Next question is from Alex, who is asking if you could write a book with any other author, who would it be and why?
Well, I wrote one with Rebecca and it was delightful. But now could you imagine me trying to like knock on her door and be like, "Hey, Rebecca."
Why not?
No, I mean, because I know her, like I know how crazy her life is. Like she's just going 1,000 miles an hour. And I mean, obviously, I would love to write with Cora because we're best friends, and I think it would be a really fun experience. But like, weirdly, this answer is going to be weird. I really like Dennis Lehane. Like he's the one that did Shutter Island. Like he writes really crazy, like suspenseful, psychological stuff. He did Mystic River too. Like I love his storytelling, but like there's never any romance in it. It's always a horrible, tragic ending. So like I would love to take one of his books and write it with a romance slant. Like the same thing, like I would love to write. I've been watching True Detective and I love it. I love it. It's like my favorite series. I would love like a true detective vibe romance. Like, all these great intense works that just have no kissing. Give them some kissing.
I agree. Like, we need at least one very, passionate kiss or a steamy scene. Like, we need that.
Yeah, I just like think romance with another romance writer is great. And I, am totally into it. Like if I was ever gonna write like a real fantasy, I would have to co-write it because I could not. Like I just the world building is so hard for me. Like my brain just does not get around like making up a language and like making up names of plants and like the maps and my brain is just like uh but taking romance and writing it in another genre with like somebody that doesn't do romance, I think would just be awesome. Like it would just be such a cool experiment and such a cool end product.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Like, it must be fun to experience, like, a bit getting out of your comfort zone, right? So switching genres a little bit and switching to, it can be like a detective book with a romance included in it. Must be fun to get out of the zone of only romance and switching it up a bit. Carly is asking, have you ever drawn inspiration from a real life story? And if so, what's one that particularly resonated with you?
I don't think stories like other books. I don't know what she's talking about, but like sometimes I get like I write very much on vibes. So like when I say the Marked Man is like a love letter to Denver as like the Warped Tour, like literally it's like that's the vibe. Like, you know, Gen X punk rock was the vibe I was going for with the Marked Men. But then I have like a cowboy series, well, two. And the first one I wrote is based in Wyoming. I wrote it after watching Longmire, and I was like, this is so cool. So I was like, yeah, that definitely inspired like the setting and like kind of the feel, like the crime in a small town in Wyoming. And then I wrote another Western series for a publisher, and that one is like Justified. with Timothy Oliphant. Like that was the vibe I was going for with the Loveless series. So like I can't say stories, but there are definitely vibes I pull from various things in my life. Like, well, and like I said, I was reading those Asian novels to write my own like time travel book. So I pull inspiration from a lot of things. So I just wrote a billionaire book, and when I was writing it, I really wanted it to feel like gothic and creepy. So it kind of, I kept telling like my editors and everybody working on it, I was like, when you're editing, I was like, I want it to feel like it could be like a part of Phantom of the Opera. I want the setting to feel like the Phantom of the Opera. And like, so they kept saying, oh, no, it does. It totally feels like Phantom of the Opera. So those are the kinds of things I take inspiration from rather than like, you know, a certain book or a certain story.
Cool. Jesse is asking, how do different cultures or historical contexts shape the romances in your stories?
It's huge now. Like it's huge to write more inclusivity. It's huge to write things that are speaking to more people and more, you know, readers. And like when I started the Marked Men, like one of the best things about Rule becoming a movie is when we talked about it, like the original Marked Men, I didn't plan on it being serious. Again, I didn't plan on being an author. I was just writing my feelings. So like that series is pretty white. Like it is pretty just, you know, white. So when we started talking about the movie, I was like, one of the things I would do if I could go back in time and be like, I know I'm going to sell this series and it's going to have this huge cast of people, I definitely would have written a more diverse and inclusive cast of characters. Like I just would have, because like no friend group is just all one ethnicity anymore in the world. And if it is, that should you should look at that. Like there should be problems with that. So yeah, I mean, and like culturally speaking, like I think I have taken where, you know, you can respect a different culture and like integrate it in your work, but nowadays you have to be very respectful and not be trying to speak on different cultures that you are not reflective of you. Like you have to let the people that have that culture and have that life experience be the ones telling those stories. Like you shouldn't keep things out of your book that, you know, are diverse, but you shouldn't be speaking as one of the people that are part of that diverse category, if that makes sense. So you just have to be, I think you have to be sensitive and you have to be aware. And you, but like I said, I try and write, I want people to be able to see themselves in my books. So like you have to try and write reflective of what real life looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I think in the Mark series, there's one Latinx, and I think the others are pretty much all white.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, Nash is pretty ethnically ambiguous.
True.
And Salem and Poppy are both Hispanic. Um, But yeah, in the movie, they I think Jet is I think he's Hispanic. Uh Evan Mock plays him. So he might be Dominican. And the girl that's Jet is African American. She's beautiful. I think that's the only ones that they like changed they told me they were going to make Jet Asian, and I was like, you need to get me Kim Woo-sung from The Rose. Like, you need to make him be Jet. He's my favorite. But The Rose was on tour, so I don't even think they got a call into him.
Oh. um, okay, so I the next one is a pretty dramatic question, which I
You
love.
know,
So Jen says, your house is on fire. You get to save only one book. Which one would it be and why?
oh, I've got it. Actually, that's not hard for me. Well, okay, it is hard. I have two. But I have a signed copy of The Outsiders. My assistant and friend Melissa bought me, which I love. Like, you know, that's one of the first books I ever read. And it's, you know, I was big into rockabilly for a long time. So, like, you know, wanted to find my own little pony boy to bring home. But I also have a version of Rule, the original Rule cover that one of the producers who bought the book to script had the entire cast sign. So it's got Chase's signature, it's got Nick Cassavetes' signature, it's got like everybody's signature on it. So both of those I would be hard pressed to choose between those two in a fire.
I mean, yeah, it is a pretty hard choice.
Yeah. If I
I
had
have
a signed copy of The Catcher in the Rye, that would be the one I would save hands down. Everything else could burn. But I don't have a signed copy of The Catcher in the Rye. So
so am I guessing I'm guessing that Catcher in the Rye is your favorite book?
yeah, I love it.
Because that is the next question.
Oh,
So Chris is asking, what's your top three favorite books?
well, Catcher in the Rye is my favorite of all favorite. My favorite like romance novel is I really like an older romance novelist like um her name's Anne Stewart. Um she was writing like dark romance before dark romance was a thing. So and it's doing well. Like I mean way before like Kindle was even a thing. So she's got a bunch of books, but one of my favorites of hers is a book called Ritual Sins. And it's the guy is a fake cult leader, like he's a scam artist, and the girl's mother has lost all her money to him in this cult, and she's so pissed because she didn't leave her anything when she died. So she like fake integrates in this cult to take him down, but during the process, like all these horrible things happen, but they fall in love, and like it's a gritty, it is like gritty, and I love it. Like it was just like that was one of my first books where I was reading where I was like, romance doesn't just have to be hearts and flowers. And I was like, that I needed that. You know what I mean? That there could be different romances. My third one, I don't know. Like my third favorite. I mean, my third favorite non-romance books are a lot, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with those two. I can't think of one I like third the most. I feel like they're all tied.
I get it. I get it. I'm the same. If you ask me three, it's hard to pick. um, then we have Rhonda, who is asking, how do you involve your readers in the development of your characters or plots, if at all?
Sometimes I have a reader group, and sometimes I'll do like if I like want to be like, oh, do you want to help pick the names? So we'll put polls up with the names, and they let them vote. And sometimes I do. I've done it a couple times, like for one of my big giveaways, like a Christmas giveaway is you can create your own character and insert it into my book. I've done that a couple times, which has been really fun. Like I let them give me the name and like their basics, like what do they look like, what's their job, what kind of personality do they have, and then I put them in the book wherever I see fit. Um, and I wrote the second gen of the Marked Man series just because of readers. Like I never intended to do a kids book. Like I thought I had left the Marked Men behind. But over COVID, I started getting so many emails and like messages and direct messages that people were rereading the Marked Men during COVID because it was like just a comfort read. It felt like going home and they didn't have to think about it, and like how much they appreciated it all these years later. And like it was just really touching. So I was like, I'm not doing anything. It's COVID. I'm stuck at home. Like I was like, maybe I'll start the second gen series. Like I said, that series really was just like more than something that I had on my like I can't wait to write list. It was more of a I'm gonna write this because my readers deserve it. And you know. So that whole series is just because of readers.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
mean, thank your readers because they're great books. So we need to talk about the movie. So we have the chance of getting real movie this year, maybe,
Yeah.
or early next year.
Yes. So that my information as of now is either later this year or early next year, but they have told me many different things and they keep moving it. So I'm not saying that for certain. I'm just saying that as of right now, that is what the people in charge are telling me.
Perfect. And readers, do not harass her. She does not know the official date yet.
No, you can
But
ask. I just feel bad I can't answer. Like I think it's good that people want to know. Like I'm excited that people are excited for it and want more details. I am as frustrated as readers that I can't give information. Like I hate it. I wish I could. Like I hate being out of the loop.
And do you know if it's close to the book or they made a lot of changes? Can you give
So
any
I read the initial script that they filmed, and the script was very similar to the book with a few tweaks here and there, like, but it was like pretty close. But then I learned what happens is so they film it, and then the director makes changes as they're filming it, like, um, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, and then there's stuff that it goes through editing. So usually the director edits it, and then the studio looks at the edit, and then there can even be like another edit, like a private edit. So I don't know what has changed from all those different edits and all those different people from the original script. I do know that they said they had to add in, like, there's some things that just don't translate from book to TV or television. Like, as much as people want the exact same book, there's some. So when you write a book, it's got 100,000 words, right? Like it's big. It's got 20 chapters. Screenplays have something like 150 pages. Like they're half. Like they're super tiny, and they'll have, like, I think they're allotted between 30,000 and 50,000 words. So they've got to make the story happen in a much shorter and condensed time frame. And I did hear that, I mean, I don't know if it's still in there, if it got cut, that they made one change for the conflict issue, that they, like, I kind of have it in there, but they amplified it in the movie way more than the book. But I understood why when they explained it. So
Okay. So readers should still recognize the book when they go see the
oh,
movie.
absolutely. I don't think
Okay.
anything they've done in any of the edits have taken away from that. Like I think they did a great job with, like, the building found friends, like all the friendships between the guys and the girls, and like they did a really good job with the tension between. So I haven't seen the final yet, so it still has gone through editing from the original. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's just no carbon copy in adaptation. There just isn't. It just doesn't happen. So, I think the best idea is to treat them as two entities. Like, this is of, this is this one thing, and then this is the movie. Like, I don't think that they're like, you could take them at the same. You know what I mean? You have to appreciate it as its own entity.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I, when you think about it, because I'm the same way. Like I usually complain when I watch a movie and I'm like, but they cut this from the book or they changed
Yeah.
that. And now that you say it, it makes total sense in the sense that, if you listen to an audiobook, it can be like 7 hours, right? But the
Yeah.
movie's two.
Right.
So it's like you need to squish the content.
Yeah.
so so yeah, we have to be, I guess, nicer when we watch movies based on books because
Yeah.
it must be very difficult to like take
Well, the
everything.
other thing is, like, I don't have, like, I didn't have a say in casting. I didn't have a say in editing. I didn't have a say in pretty much anything other than selling them and saying they could take my book and use it as the base, right? So, like, I'm okay if people are like, this is terrible, this is terrible. Like, I whatever their complaints end up being, like, for me, it's, I'm not taking it personal, because, like, nobody asked me. You know what I mean? Like, I wrote the book that people love. I did my job. Like, if they make a movie that people don't like because it's not close enough to the book, I feel like that's their problem.
It, absolutely, it is. And
But I
do
said
do
I
you
haven't seen the final, so I can't answer how similar or different they are. Like, I can't give you like a firm answer. But like I told you earlier, they're not twins, but they're in the same family. So they're like half siblings or first cousins. Like, you know, they've got the same heart, they've got the same blood, they've got the same soul. They just aren't twins.
I yeah. I like the idea, and even if you're not involved in it, I mean, the book was so good that I'm hopeful that the movie will be great.
Yeah.
Um,
The guy that bought it, Josh, the producer that bought it, I worked with him for many years. Like he knows Rule like the back of his hand. His wife is the one that pushed him to buy it. Josh has seen the final draft and he says it's remarkable. And if anybody's going to tell me it's remarkable, knowing how much Haley, his wife, is like obsessed with the book, I believe Josh. So if Josh says it's remarkable, I believe it's remarkable, even if it's not like the book. Like I trust his judgment.
So what you're saying is we all have to thank Haley for this whole movie.
No, well, you do. Everybody does. Like literally, she tweeted at me years ago and was like, "I love Rules." She's like, "It needs to be a movie." So like, I sarcastically like tweeted back, "Well, if you know anybody in show business, have them hit me up." Like, not I didn't know who she was. Like, and then literally like 3 weeks later, Josh, her husband, got in touch with me and was like, "Yeah, like let us shop it. Like, I think I can find somebody to do something with it."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do we know if there's a possibility of a sequel with the other books, or is that not set
Like
in
that
stone
was
yet?
the plan until the writer's strike. So now everything hinges on how well Rule does. Like if Rule, whatever form it comes out in, be it movie theater or streaming, like if Rule does the numbers, like is successful enough to warrant a second one. I mean, they already have it. Like they already own the first, like they own the rights to the first three, and they have a partial script that stopped during the writer strikes. So yeah, so I mean, if people want more, if it's good enough and people want more, they just got to go watch it so they can see the profitability for number two.
Right.
But it would be
Perfect.
a sequel. It would be Jet's book. Like they wanted to do it like an interconnected romance universe. So it wouldn't be more Rule and
Okay.
Shaw. It would be Jet and Aiden.
Love that. So guys, you have to go watch the movie as soon as it
Yeah.
comes out. We need to bring the numbers up. And do you have any idea if a trailer is coming out soon for Rule?
Once we get a release date, I'm sure that it will come soon. I'm like, as soon as they figure out when they're going to release it, I'm sure we'll get that. But like I said, I don't think they have landed on. A lot of it is because, like I said, Chase has other stuff going on, so I think they're waiting. They don't want to run a trailer for that when they're running the trailers for the Uglies, and they probably don't want to run the trailer for that while he's promoting the Outer Banks. Would be my guess.
All the focus will be on Rule when the time comes. So,
Hopefully.
so we have another question, this time from Callie Ann, who is asking, what's your favorite type of obstacle to place between your characters, and how do you make their eventual resolution satisfying?
I mean, I have a couple. Like I really like a writing opposites attract. So like financial differences, class differences is a big one I really like. And usually the middle ground is, either somebody giving up somebody something or somebody gaining something. Um I've done distance as an obstacle, which is interesting, like trying to write a long distance romance, I think, or I've done the obstacle of, someone like being a criminal and the other person being a police officer. So legal obstacles I've done. Um, but yeah, I think that's like my favorite is like enemies to lovers and opposites attract. So I think I generally always put some kind of obstacle between them, be it, something unsurmountable or family pressure's a good one. Like it's, like Shaw's mom wants her to marry a doctor or whatever, and, not a tattoo artist. Um, which was really fun because then when I wrote their kids' book, her daughter brought home a criminal, a guy from the point, like a very bad man. And like having Shaw have to parent and tell her daughter, like, maybe that's not the right guy for you, even though, she totally defied her own parents to be with a Rule. So yeah, I mean, give me all the obstacles, honestly. I'll write all of them. They're my favorite. Like that's they're talking about conflict. Like an obstacle is just a conflict that they have to overcome.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, Elisa is asking, how do you envision the evolution of romance literature in the next decade, especially in terms of representation and themes? I know we broached the subject of representation and in romance books, but what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are we have to be very careful with AI because it feels like romance, especially, has been mined to the depths for AI to create books in the blink of an eye. Like, I feel like that is what the future of romance is hinging on, being able to keep real writers and real editors and real cover artists and like real humans involved and engaged in the writing experience versus robots and computers. Like that's the battle that I think most romance writers are looking at now. Um, and the world has changed. Like back when I first started writing, like people wanted to get a book with a publisher so you could be in stores. And like nowadays, they want to go viral on TikTok. It's like Book Talk will do more to sell books than any publisher I've ever published with. Like Book Talks is a phenomenon I don't think anybody anticipated being what it is. And like if you have a good savvy marketing mind and you have a good presence on social media, nowadays you don't even need a publisher to get in bookstores because there's businesses or publishers that are buying books from indie authors that have blown up huge on TikTok and putting those books in stores. Like publishers are falling by the wayside. Like they're, becoming obsolete and they move so slow. Like no publisher has adjusted to the change in tide of TikTok. Like they're just, I think the antiquated business model that they operate on is crazy. But the person that asked the question is right. There has been a huge shift in uh, publishing own voices, but not just romance, writing representative romance, but like writing representative YA and writing representative fantasy and writing representative sci-fi and like, you know, really trying to open doors for people like young people, I mean older people too, but really like young readers to see themselves in books, be they queer, be they Asian, be they, you know, Hispanic, like having full stories for them for their whole life as they go. Like, because when you're a little white kid, you have the Babysitters Club, and then you have Nora Roberts, and then you have, you know what I mean? Like, you're never searching for yourself in books, but like, I think that's a pretty brilliant shift in, the change of publishing is to be able to start from young to adulthood, having those kids always able to find something that gears to them. And I think readers reading outside of their own too is a big one. Like, like readers actively going to search for diverse reads, I think is a big change that people have seen. But
Yeah,
really,
absolutely.
it's the worst.
I I mean, it must be, yeah, it must be, I mean, I'm not an author and I'm still terrified of AI and what it can
Yeah.
do.
Well,
So,
that the big meta AI that had mined public works. So because I have so many books and so many of them have pirated, almost all of my books were mined for that database. So if somebody got on that AI um whatever database engine and typed in write a Jay Crownover book with a tattooed guy and a blonde girl, there's enough of my words and my way of speaking, full novels of mine in there that AI could write a whole version of Rule in what 45 minutes where it takes me 4 months, It's crazy.
wow. Wow. It's yeah. It is very very scary to think of the impact it will have on the future of the, well, actually any author, not just romance, but any author. It's
Yeah.
so yeah, we need to figure this out so we can protect your work. Um, and then we have Martha, who is asking, is there a personal experience or belief that significantly influences the romances you create?
I think so. Like, I think an underlying theme that is found in all of my books, regardless of anything else, is like you have to love yourself first before you can fully love someone else. Like, you have to have self acceptance before you can have any kind of healthy relationship with another person. I mean, and I think that is something I try to, you know, always convey. And like, I really write like somebody's coming in my kitchen. Like tough female characters. Like I write unlikable women more often than not. And that is because I think everybody deserves to have love, even if you're considered unlikable, if you're annoying, if you're a bitch, if you're this, if you're that. Like, I always try and keep the idea that everyone deserves love, regardless of their personality quirks.
Perfect. And we have another one from Andrew, who is asking, what is your favorite word and what is your least favorite word?
Oh. Uh, I mean, I write it all the time and have to go in and take it out of all my work. I say super a lot. Like, that's super fun. That's super exciting. I'm super happy. So I have to go in and like take super out all the time. My editor's like, get rid of it. Uh, oh, my least favorite word. Uh, I don't know. I got called a cunt the other day. So, but like the British kind.
Wow.
So I was like, you know,
Okay.
enjoy that very much. Like, and I don't write it very often, so I think I prefer moist over cunt, if that makes a big difference.
I mean, they're both horrible. Um, but yikes. Okay. That's pretty bad to call you that.
Yeah. It was at a bar. Like some drunken British tourist was like, "You do gotta be a cunt," which in them is just like, don't be, a jerk or whatever. But I was like, I would enjoy that. I was like,
Yeah,
I'm
no.
not a fan.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know anybody who would be a fan of that. And then we have Cheryl, who is asking, how do you? Oh, sorry. Okay, if your latest novel had a theme song or soundtrack, what would it be and why? It seems like you really like music, and I think it'd be fun to know.
Yeah, it is. I told you, it's the Phantom of the Opera. Like I hear the organs and the moody, like, and I guess if it's like a whole soundtrack, it would be probably pretty goth heavy. It would be like Nine Inch Nails and like The Cure, and yeah, like because it's very, like I said, I wanted to write a gothic novel, so it would be all that like really deep, moody music.
Awesome. And then we have Gina, who is asking, if they could make any movie out of a book, which one would it be? It doesn't have to be yours, just a book that you enjoyed that you would like to see on screen.
Oh, I mean, I really enjoyed um Roar. I think Cora's would be interesting with all the weather. Like that would be an interesting adaptation. Trying to think of what I read lately that I'm like, that would make a great movie. I don't know, because I feel like everybody's already like, Fourth Wing's becoming a movie, and Jen Armentrout's Blood and Ash is becoming a movie. Like the TV shows, not movies, sorry. Trying to think of like something contemporary that I really enjoyed that was like, yeah, I don't know. Can't think of anything. I mean, I really like Kristen Ashley's stuff, so I would take like any of her. Like if they were gonna reboot like a motorcycle series, like I really like that first book, Motorcycle Man. I think that would be fun,
Right.
like a romancy Sons of Anarchy vibe. I think that would be fun. I would definitely watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned Roar at first because I just filmed my top 5 books that should be made into a movie or a TV show, and Roar is my number 2, I think, in the video.
Yeah.
Um,
The
so
visuals
I
would just be amazing with all the weather and like the stones that have powers. Like it would be, yeah. I mean, it would make it. It would be very engaging.
yeah, and like the different when they travel, like the desert, like the castle, like all the
Yeah.
different visual places where you can travel. It yeah, I'd be here for it. Um, and then you can have book 2, book 3, so you'd have 3 movies instead of just
Yeah.
one. So Love that.
Like some of her early stuff would be good rom-coms too. Like Losing It would be a very good rom-com. Like
Do
that
you think
awkward.
so? Nowadays, with the whole teacher student relationship?
He was a student teacher technically, so
Yeah. I mean, I love the book. I love losing it, but
they were in high school, but I think that because it's college age, they could make it a rom-com.
you're right, probably. In her other book, oh my god, I can't remember the name. Where the muse who inspires the guitar player. I think he plays the guitar.
Oh, yeah, I can't
Um,
remember the name of that. I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name of it.
yeah, that'd be great. Like it brings like
See what I'm saying?
mythology.
She has ideas that are just so big and like brilliant and like I just said I don't think I could keep up with her. Like her mind is just too expansive for me.
I mean, have you read your own books? They're pretty great too.
Yeah, but I mean we just write different. Like I write like I think the stuff I write, like I don't like where I don't necessarily write dark romance. Like I write stuff that's still very edgy. Like I write stuff that's, kind of like I'm never in pursuit of writing an easy romance. Like that is never my goal. Like I try and write romance where like sometimes it makes you uncomfortable and like sometimes you have to sink your teeth into it. Sometimes you've got to let it sit and sometimes you got to be like, yo, this person is terrible. Like, I don't ever like I'm never in search of a comfortable story. Like I'm in search of stuff that is like it has to interest me. So there's got to be stuff in there that I find interesting, and that sometimes makes for characters that are in really awkward and uncomfortable places in their lives.
Yes, absolutely. And but you write them in such a good way, I guess, even if it's uncomfortable. Like you come out of it better, I feel like
Yeah, I
you
mean,
read
because
some of
we're
the
all
books.
human. Like, we all have our falls, our flaws, and faults, but we also have the things that make us awesome. And like that awesome might not be awesome for somebody else, but like for the people that it is awesome for, it's really special. Like,
Absolutely. And like I think Asa is a great example of that. Like he
yeah,
starts as a very annoying, very, very annoying bad guy slash brother
yeah,
who
he's my
puts his
favorite.
sister in trouble. But then he very quickly he became my favorite very
Yeah.
quickly. And
I mean, he had no moral compass for the first like three books. Like, and that was on purpose. Like, he was a terrible. I mean, he was terrible because circumstances made him terrible. Like, when you were in such a dire situation, like, instead of overcoming it and becoming more of the situation, he became worse than the situation to survive. Like, yeah, he's my favorite in that whole series. Probably because I spent the most time with him. Like, he's in all of those books. Like, so, I was bringing him to life for over what 2-3 years that it took the series to come out.
yeah, and I think it's in Nash where the character goes to see him and he's like, okay, but how did you change? And Ace is like, I didn't change. I have to fight it every single day. And I'm like,
Yeah,
this is so human. Where it's like, yeah, I have faults. I'm not perfect, and I have to fight to be a good person and make good choices every single day.
yeah,
And I was like, yes, that's it. That's being human.
it's true.
It really is. And usually the one thing about romance books sometimes is that it the characters are goody two shoes and like they can't do anything wrong and they're good people all the time. But in real life, no one's good all the time. And I
Yeah,
feel like your characters are really human because of that, because they're not perfect all the time, because they make
yeah.
bad decisions,
I
because they screw
the
up.
my recent book, The Billionaire Duet, the girl in it is she's very Peter Pan. Like she's very like flighty and like, kind of irresponsible and like I got a lot of people that were like, she is so annoying. and then I wrote the second book, which hasn't come out yet, and like it kind of explains like why she's trying to like relive her youth and like have, you know, a joyful adulthood because of everything she's been through. And I'm like, I'm like, you might find her annoying, but like I know people like that like, had to give up everything when they were younger, and now that they're older and making decisions for themselves and their own happiness, like that's what they do. Like they are Peter Pan. Like
Absolutely, yeah. No, no, absolutely. And yes, they might be annoying, but like you said earlier, like that doesn't mean they don't deserve their happy ending. It doesn't mean they don't deserve to be understood and loved. And you do an amazing job at bringing them
I
to
appreciate
life
that.
in the
I
book.
gotta let these dogs out in a little bit. So how many questions are left?
There's only one, so great timing.
Oh, great.
So the
They've
last
been
question,
so good. I can't believe they've been quiet this whole time. But like I'm watching
they've
them like
been
behind me
they've been
shift around.
amazing. So the last question is from Eric, who is asking, what's the most unconventional piece of advice you would give to someone looking to write their first romance novel?
Oh, unconventional advice. Oh, wow. I don't know. I mean, I know what I would tell somebody for real, but like unconventional, something I'm trying to think of like something that helped me that was not,
I mean, you can
well,
say what you would say for real.
unconventional. Find a like good, comfortable, ergonomic way to write. Like I spent 10 years sitting on my couch writing with my laptop on my legs, and now I have to like get my nerves fucking blocked because my back is so fucked up. Like writing, it doesn't seem like it should take a toll on your body, but man, it really does. Like I regret not having a really nice plush desk setup to like start writing in from the beginning. Like, oh, also, weirdly enough, I wish somebody had told me before I started writing is if you really plan to do it before you start, go get on social media and get your name. So get your Twitter, get your Instagram, get your TikTok, get your email. Like my Instagram, because I fought being on it for so long, is Jay.Crownover. Because when I finally signed up, there were like 100 variations of Jay Crownover. I couldn't even have my own name on Instagram. So like, like you want your own name to be like, even if you don't use it until 5 or 6 years, like you still want your name for stuff. What else is like something that I wish somebody had told me before? Uh, yeah, I mean, what I would real advice too is like, I think you need to read a lot of what you plan on writing. Like, I think you need to have an idea of, what a romance novel is. Like, I don't think you should just like wing it and just, I mean, I don't mean you have to be a solely romance reader, but like, you know, like if you're going to sit down and write high fantasy and like have never read Game of Thrones or anything, what's that Brandon Sanderson has written, like if you're just gonna like wing it with no idea of what that means, I think that's ill-fated. I don't think you're going to get very far. um and I mean I think it's important to know like what audiences in what you're writing are reading, like not that you should necessarily write it, because like I don't think I could ever write a haunting Adeline. Like I mean I think it's really well written, but like I just don't think that, like kind of like I said, I could never write mystery. Like there's just some limitations to my brain where I just don't have that skill or that talent. But like, if you've never written anything and like you read Haunting Adeline and it vibes with you, like that's people. Do you know how many copies that book has sold? Like, you know what I mean? So being a well-versed reader before you become a writer, I think is a really good starting point.
Well, there you have it, guys. Jay Crownover, thank you so
No,
much.
thank you. It was
And
fun.
please thank your puppies for being so
Yeah,
adorable and
they're
so
so
calm,
good.
because they are
Um,
both adorable.
well, thanks for your time. Thank you, everybody, for asking all the questions. Like, that was nice that there were so many.
It was nice for you. For me, it was kind of a nightmare to filter, and I felt
Sorry.
so bad. But
Everybody
it
go see
was
Rule.
Yes, yes, please, please, as soon as we know the dates, please
Yes,
already put it in your agenda, your
promise. I
calendar.
will post about it as soon as I'm able.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, have a good one. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, you guys want to go outside?